How predictable. She can't help herself, can she? Meghan Markle breaks her agreement with King Charles and Buckingham Palace to leak to her friends at People magazine less than a week after that promised meeting. You stupid cow! Like, how many times have I told you don't be a... Ms. Pepper is no longer interested in the salt shaker, if you understand what I mean.
Less than a week after the Sussexes were granted a reunion away from the cameras, the silence around that meeting is already disappearing. The public was told this visit would be handled differently. There would be no official family photograph, no carefully staged entrance, no balcony moment, and no dramatic announcement presenting Meghan and Harry as returning royal insiders. For once, the meeting at Highgrove was supposed to stay exactly where it happened, behind closed doors.
Sussexes start to leak new details about the meeting with the king. They couldn't hold their silence. What they had told King Charles was a lie.
Then, People magazine placed Meghan's emotions at the center of an exclusive cover story. Anonymous sources began explaining that Meghan had been very supportive, that there was a lot of sadness, that she would have felt humiliated by the public arguments surrounding the trip.
Certainly in the case of People magazine, it is either directly from Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, directly from one of their friends, or directly from their communications team, at the moment the hapless Liam Maguire.
Before we continue, I want to mention something really quick. Organizing your family's important information is one of those things most of us know we should do, but we keep putting it off. That's exactly why there's the Family Vault. It gives you one place to organize your important documents, insurance, medical information, passwords, and more, so everything is easy to find when it's needed. You'll find the link in the description, or you can scan the QR code on your screen. That's all. Now, let's get back to today's story. And that she always lets Harry lead when the subject involves his relatives. The king's private words may not have appeared in print, but the publicity campaign around the reunion has clearly started. Nobody needed to reveal a full transcript from Highgrove in order to shape the public's understanding of what happened.
The reporting directly contravenes what Prince Harry and Meghan Markle had agreed with the palace, which was that there was to be no briefing around this visit to try and shape the narrative in favor of one party. But she can't help herself, can she?
By describing Meghan as wounded, loyal, disappointed, and quietly supportive, the article creates an emotional version of the reunion without exposing the actual conversation. So was the promise of privacy genuine? Or did privacy simply mean that the Sussexes would not release the photograph, while friendly sources sold the feelings around it? Buckingham Palace offered almost nothing publicly.
What was it that was so awful this time, Pet? The audience with the king at his Highgrove sanctuary, the offer of an apartment at Buckingham Palace, maybe? No, apparently it was the very public way the back and forth about the visit was conducted.
Charles and Camilla met Harry, Meghan, Archie, and Lilibet at Highgrove, but the occasion was presented as a personal family gathering rather than a royal event. There was no triumphant image for the Sussexes to take back to California. There was no public endorsement from the institution. There was no statement announcing that old wounds had healed. The palace controlled what could be seen, and that control appears to have created a problem. When the image could not become the product, the emotional story became the product instead.
Only people responsible for this playing out in public were Harry and Meghan. The palace said nothing. They sat patient.
Now Meghan is being described as the wife who wanted to stand beside Harry, suffered because of the chaos, and remained supportive while he dealt with the consequences of his own family conflict. Somehow, she has become the sympathetic center of a trip during which she was barely visible. Before Harry even arrived in Britain, the visit had already become another exhausting dispute involving accommodation, protection, deadlines, and competing claims from both sides.
So we're meant to feel sorry for them here. This leak is Meghan trying to make herself the victim in all of this, somehow.
The king had reportedly made a royal residence available, where staff and security arrangements could be properly managed. Palace sources said the offer required formal acceptance by a deadline, but that confirmation was not received in time. Harry's representatives challenged the palace account, and what should have been a private logistical arrangement was suddenly being fought in public. Was he going to stay at Buckingham Palace? Had he rejected the offer? Was the accommodation removed? Was the problem security, timing, or communication? Why did any of this need to become another press battle before the family had even met?
on the front page of the biggest selling newspaper in the UK, and that's what it's all about. The way that it's been handled is purely about making sure that everything he does and says, and it's all part of the brand, keeps them current. Will they, won't they be part of Buckingham Palace, be at Buckingham Palace? I feel sorry for the king with this because he's been played, I think.
That confusion was already hanging over the visit when Harry suffered a major courtroom loss against associated newspapers. The High Court dismissed the claims brought by Harry and the other claimants, and Harry attacked the judgment as a complete and obvious whitewash. He therefore returned to Britain carrying legal anger, possible financial pressure, another confrontation with the press, and another argument involving the palace. The Invictus Countdown should have been the central story.
Hang on a second. It was her team that fired the starting pistol on making public this entire psychodrama by issuing unprompted an operational note to journalists confirming that the whole California quartet would be flying over for what the Sussex people were already thrillingly billing as a dramatic rapprochement with the entire UK.
Instead, questions about royal accommodation, security, Meghan's absence, and Harry's legal defeat swallowed the mission he had traveled to promote. Meghan had originally been expected to appear beside him during parts of the trip. Her presence would have changed the atmosphere immediately, because every photographer would have focused on her, and every newspaper would have asked whether she was attempting a royal comeback, but she never appeared publicly.
People says the Duchess planned to be by her husband's side for several outings. However, there was an about face when security concerns prevented her and their 2 children from a full visit to Harry's home country. Now, again, this is totally intellectually dishonest reporting from People magazine. There's been no about face. Nothing has changed. Like, they got the security that has already been agreed. So no about face, just to correct that.
Harry attended the Invictus event alone, while Meghan and the children remained hidden until the palace confirmed the private Highgrove reunion. For a brief moment, that secrecy looked meaningful. The family had entered Britain without turning the children into a photo opportunity. Meghan had avoided the cameras. Harry had not received a public royal welcome. The institution had allowed contact without offering restoration. That was the strongest message of the entire visit. The Sussexes were permitted through the private door, but they were not handed a public stage. People magazine has now supplied the stage that Highgrove refused to provide.
20 cars went into the Gloucester home of the King and Queen, Highgrove House, for some function to do with some organisation. And hidden within those 20 cars was, indeed, Harry, Meghan, Prince Archie. Is he Prince Archie? I have no idea. Archie and Lilibet.
Instead of a photograph of Meghan inside a royal residence, readers received a detailed explanation of how Meghan supposedly felt about everything. The article says she would have been humiliated by the public argument over the visit. But why is Meghan being presented as the person humiliated by a dispute connected to Harry's arrangements? Harry's team participated in the public back and forth.
2 people that are up to no good, because that's what they appear to be doing. At least that's what it looks like to me. Prove me wrong.
Harry understood that his security concerns had not suddenly vanished, and he knew a royal residence could not be treated like a hotel room booked at the last moment. Yet once that argument damaged the trip, the consequences were transformed into another sympathetic story about Meghan. She wanted to attend. She supported Harry. She was upset. She stood back because she lets him handle his own family. The framing makes Meghan sound like an innocent observer trapped inside a disaster created by everybody around her.
A source who knows the couple. Oh, I wonder who. Tells people in this week's exclusive cover story that she would have felt humiliated. Oh, poor Meghan. Humiliated watching the public back and forth unfold.
But Meghan is not an uninvolved passenger in the Sussex media operation. She and Harry have spent years converting private royal disagreements into global content. Meghan spoke to Oprah, appeared in the Netflix documentary series, and described the pressures surrounding royal life. Harry then published Spare, which included intimate memories, arguments, and conversations involving his relatives. Their international profile has repeatedly been powered by stories that began inside private family spaces.
This wasn't a victory. It was proof that everything has come full circle when you look at the lies and all of the chaos. It's no longer about Harry and what's important to him. Meghan is on her quest to do what she wants to do, and she's proving it to us all.
There is no public evidence that Meghan personally contacted the magazine or dictated the wording. However, people close enough to claim knowledge of her emotions clearly wanted those emotions included in the public record. Someone wanted the audience to understand that Meghan was supportive rather than absent, hurt rather than indifferent, and humiliated rather than responsible. Why was that clarification considered so urgent? Why could the meeting not remain quiet for longer than a few days?
By doing that, Harry has just completely undermined the argument that he has spent months making, that the country is too unsafe for his family.
Did Meghan's circle believe the palace had won control of the story? Did they fear viewers were asking why she left Harry to face the trip alone? Or was the purpose to protect Meghan's image while allowing Harry to carry every visible failure? The line claiming Meghan always lets Harry lead around his family may be the most calculated sentence in the entire article. On the surface, it sounds loving and respectful, but it also gives Meghan the perfect amount of distance.
But why this matters, of course, is that we know that Prince Harry has in the past directly emailed People magazine. We know that People magazine effectively operates as like the house journal for the Sussexes. And we know that Meghan Markle wanted it to be known to the world that the choreography of this meeting was nothing to do with her.
When the reunion appears successful, she can be described as the supportive wife who encouraged Harry. When the reunion goes wrong, Harry was the person leading. When another dispute reaches the newspapers, she can insist that she allowed him to manage his own relationships. And if private information emerges later, responsibility can again be placed on Harry's decisions. Meghan remains close enough to benefit from the royal connection, but distant enough to avoid owning the damage when that connection creates another crisis. Harry continues to accept the most exposed role. He fights the legal battles. He attacks the judgments.
Meghan is very supportive of Harry, adding there's a lot of sadness over how the week unfolded and that she wasn't able to be by his side. However, another insider adds when it comes to Harry's dealings with his family, she always lets him lead. Behind the scenes, the drama surrounding the visit was quite stressful.
He argues over security. He appears alone at Invictus. He answers the questions. Then anonymous voices appear to explain that Meghan was quietly supporting him and emotionally suffering in the background. Harry receives the criticism, while Meghan receives the protection. Only days after the private Highgrove meeting, Harry appeared without Meghan at the Time 100 Sports Gala in New York. He did not avoid the red carpet.
Everything with Meghan and trying to get these jobs and trying to get these awards and her continual quest for celebrity, it proves one thing, that Meghan's priority is for herself.
He smiled, posed, and even complimented the photographers, describing them as some of the most polite he had encountered. This was not a man who looked overwhelmed by camera flashes. When the attention was friendly, Harry appeared relaxed and pleased to participate. For years, Harry's public story has focused on press intrusion, photographers, security fears, and the emotional harm caused by relentless attention. Yet on a welcoming American red carpet, he seemed entirely comfortable.
Is just full-on pro-Sussex propaganda, because actually Meghan could have been there. She planned to be there. My belief is the reason she didn't attend is because she didn't want to be pictured with Prince Harry on the week that he had had the most significant courtroom loss in modern history. He is a loser. She didn't want to associate with him this week because, again, nothing in the security has changed.
When photographers offered applause instead of criticism, the cameras suddenly appeared harmless. The issue does not always look like publicity itself. It looks like publicity Harry and Meghan cannot control. At the gala, Harry said Charles was doing great, and that Meghan and the children were happy to be back home. At almost the same time, People magazine was reporting that there had been a lot of sadness surrounding the trip. Which version should the audience accept?
Meanwhile, Prince Harry has arrived back in the United States, completely fine, proving the point that I have made, by the way, for months and years, that they can travel in and out of the UK with their children privately with absolutely no issues whatsoever.
Was Meghan deeply disappointed because she could not appear beside Harry in Britain? Was she humiliated by the accommodation dispute? Or was she simply happy to leave and return home? Was the reunion emotionally painful? Or did Harry leave Britain energized enough to enjoy another celebrity event almost immediately? The competing messages expose the problem at the center of the Sussex brand. In Britain, attention is presented as danger, pressure, hostility, and trauma. In New York, Harry can praise the photographers, smile for the cameras, and answer personal questions without appearing trapped.
What is quite notable, though, is that Meghan Markle didn't attend the Time 100 event with Harry. Certainly, when the chips are down, she don't want to be seen with her Duke.
At Highgrove, the palace controlled the presentation by refusing to release an official image or a detailed statement. That prevented Meghan and Harry from immediately advertising the reunion as a major royal breakthrough. They could not point to a smiling family portrait. They could not claim they had been publicly restored. They could not use palace language to prove that the institution had welcomed them back. But they could fill the silence with anonymous emotional explanations.
Because they're not slick. There are a couple accounts that they have been using allegedly, imposter social media accounts, 2 of them.
The photograph remained unavailable, so the surrounding narrative became more valuable. Meghan did not appear at the Invictus countdown, yet the press story focused on how much she wanted to be present. She did not stand publicly in Britain, yet a magazine cover centered her sadness. She did not control the official palace confirmation, yet sources quickly supplied her private position. She was not beside Harry at the Time Gala, but her absence again became part of the discussion. Meghan can vanish from the camera frame and still dominate the coverage. It is an extremely effective publicity strategy.
Prince Harry, the bonehead who sinks millions into failed privacy actions and who says camera flashes terrify him, is now doing cheesy "have you got my best side, guys" camera turns at celebrity galas like he's Meghan Markle's sugar lump veneers. Hypocritical old ham. He was loving this event so much overnight that he even praised the photographers, who he usually claims to despise.
Love it. Life is good.
Outstanding.
You're perfect. There it is.
And one lady, there's one lady, it's me.
She's the best.
The trip had briefly suggested that Harry and Meghan might finally understand the value of restraint. They traveled quietly. The children were protected from public view. Charles met his grandchildren. Camilla attended the reunion. Meghan returned to Britain without creating a visible spectacle. No details appeared during the actual visit. But privacy is not proven by remaining silent only until the cars leave the gates. Real privacy also applies in the days and weeks afterward.
There's a lot of sadness over how the week unfolded and that she wasn't able to be by his side throughout the visit. A source tells people.
It is not enough to hide Charles's exact words while publishing Meghan's emotional reaction. It is not enough to withhold a family photograph while sources describe who felt rejected, saddened, or humiliated. It is not enough to conceal the children's faces while using their reunion to strengthen a reconciliation narrative. Privacy requires discipline long after the meeting ends. They say they want peace, but public conflict keeps their story active. They say they want privacy, but continued relevance depends on curiosity about their private lives.
Surely we now have proof that he can fly in and out of the UK, sight unseen, no paparazzi pictures, no security troubles whatsoever. So what's his issue?
Well, I think that'll probably be a big issue for them because they do love a controversy.
They say they want to repair family relationships, yet another feud produces more attention than quiet healing ever could. They say security is the central issue, but they continue attending public events and entering highly visible spaces when the opportunity is useful. They say they have moved forward, but every major publicity cycle eventually returns to the monarchy. Meghan has entertainment projects, a lifestyle business, celebrity connections, and television opportunities. She could build an identity that does not require another royal argument. Yet what placed her back at the center of a major magazine cover?
They do this because the goal is their individual brand, mainly Meghan, I believe. Mainly Meghan. Because while you hear your husband wanting to have a life back in the UK, then all we see of you is appearing on Australian television for Celebrity Chef. You've nominated yourself for this low-end Emmy Award, something that was really for the team, the big picture of the project of With Love Meghan, not as her as an individual, but it's so important to her that she will take these steps to get what she wants.
The reunion with the king. What encouraged sources to discuss her disappointment and loyalty? The reunion with the king. What caused the public to debate whether Meghan had been rejected, misunderstood, supportive, or humiliated? Once again, the reunion with the king. The royal link remains the strongest source of attention available to the Sussex brand.
She always plays the victim, and they were always going to leak it. It was a matter of time. Even I thought it was quite quick. How they've leaked.
They can't help themselves.
Detail. There'll be more detail that comes out about this, and it will all be positive about the Sussexes. I mean, the reality is that's what they're going to do. They're going to leak, and it's inevitable. I mean, it is inevitable.
That is why this cover story matters far beyond a few anonymous quotes. It demonstrates how quickly a private family event can be converted into carefully managed public messaging. The palace remained almost completely silent, and Meghan never appeared before British cameras. But a Sussex-friendly, emotional account still reached millions of readers. Stories like that require sources, and sources normally speak because they want a particular idea understood. The question is not whether every sentence came directly from Meghan.
I still believe that the UK trip was a total epic disaster. And I understand they got the private meeting with the King and Queen, but just hear me out on this, right? Because what she didn't receive was the photo opportunity that she so desperately wanted. What she didn't get was the chance to unveil the children's faces at a public royal event or royal adjacent event, which would have then allowed her to spend the next year pimping out the kids as much as possible for her business.
The real question is why people around the couple decided that her feelings had to be explained immediately. Why did the public need to know she lets Harry lead? Why did her supposed humiliation require a magazine cover? Why was her sadness released before the reunion had any time to create trust? Who was the message designed to persuade? The palace? The American public? Harry himself? Or Meghan's critics, who were asking why she did not publicly support her husband during one of his most difficult weeks? Harry had lost an important legal case, faced questions about the cost and consequences, and watched Invictus become overshadowed by royal drama.
How on earth can Meghan Markle then leak to People magazine, contravening the agreement that they had made with Buckingham Palace, that she is somehow the victim in all of this?
Meghan was nowhere beside him in public. Then an article appeared with an answer to nearly every criticism. She wanted to go. She supported him. Security complicated the situation. She felt sadness. She was humiliated by the public dispute. She stepped back only because Harry leads when his family is involved. Meanwhile, Harry's own image is becoming more confused. He recently joined a podcast, called himself the Prince of England, described himself as a full-time father, and took part in crude conversations that many viewers believed made him appear unserious.
Can I just give Harry and Meghan a newsflash? It's been resolved a long time ago. There is nothing to resolve. You're not getting it unless there's a specific threat. So you're the ones creating this constant drama. And you know that. It's just People magazine lying.
Soon afterward, he attended the Time Gala and enthusiastically engaged with the same type of cameras he often condemns. Harry wants to be seen as a wounded royal, a campaigner, a celebrity, a father, a victim of the press, and sometimes a friendly partner of the press. Those identities no longer fit together easily. Meghan's image, by comparison, appears more controlled and carefully defended. When criticism grows, anonymous explanations present her as loyal and misunderstood.
Will it remain private? And that will be the acid test for the Sussexes and their sort of relationship with the extended royal family. If they can keep all the details quiet, then that might be a step forward in the way that they conduct themselves going, and particularly relationships with the king, and maybe even down the line with his brother.
Before we continue, one quick thing. One thing I've realized is that most families don't have their important information organized in one place. That's exactly why I recommend the Family Vault, a simple, printable, and fillable organizer where you can keep everything from important documents and insurance to medical information, passwords. You'll find the link in the description, or you can simply scan the QR code on your screen. Now let's get back to today's story. When Harry creates another controversy, he remains fully visible while Meghan is protected from the immediate consequences. Does Meghan still view Harry as the route back to royal relevance? Does Harry understand that his failed battles often create another opportunity for Meghan to receive sympathetic coverage? And what happens when the next private detail is released? Today, sources are only discussing Meghan's feelings. Tomorrow, will somebody describe Charles's reaction? Will readers be told what the room felt like, who apologized, who became emotional, or who promised to meet again? Will a future documentary refer to Highgrove while claiming not to expose the conversation?
Can I just say that the thing that should probably get your title stripped is going on a podcast, sort of a TV show these days, and talking about your pubic hair and people shitting themselves.
Will Meghan eventually discuss the visit in an interview and insist she is protecting the most sensitive details? One emotional briefing can make the next briefing easier. Once the palace believes that private contact will repeatedly produce public material, why would it continue opening private doors? That is the risk Harry and Meghan are creating for themselves. Highgrove could have marked the beginning of a slow rebuilding of trust. Instead, the meeting became the foundation of another magazine narrative within days. Meghan did not pose outside the residence, but her feelings were still placed before millions.
The titles matter. Having an open family connection matters to Meghan Markle. Knowing that they have proximity to royalty, it matters.
Harry said the trip concerned family, then quickly returned to celebrity publicity in America. The Sussexes continue speaking about reconciliation, but no reconciliation can survive when every emotional development becomes content. So what do you believe happened here? Did sources close to Meghan break the spirit of the private reunion by briefing People magazine? Was the humiliated storyline created to answer criticism about Meghan leaving Harry to face the week alone? And when the article says Meghan lets Harry lead, is that genuine respect or a convenient way to disappear when consequences arrive? The Highgrove photograph may still be private. The king's words may not yet have been published, but the publicity operation surrounding the reunion is already moving again. And if this much emotional detail has emerged in less than 1 week, the palace may now be wondering what will appear next.